how is the research question of forgiveness relate to the reality or to what's going on in the Middle East and the Muslim world? We think that this is a crucial theme and a crucial topic to explore, as well as to enhance and build capacity, because if we look at countries like Syria, Lebanon, Egypt, Jordan, and Libya, and even Tunisia, I think that's more stable, you can see that at least 6 or 7 Arab countries these days struggle with a transitional period from dictatorship into a more, I think, open system. I'm not sure it's going to be democratic system as we see it in many other countries or in other countries, but it is a transitional period where lots of injuries, lots of victimhood, and hundreds of thousands across these countries have been either injured and killed and tortured and had faced severe trauma. So the societies, the Arab societies in these countries are in some ways wounded and feel the pain and the suffering of the transition. So there is no transition, a peaceful transition, and one that leads to stability, economic stability or security, without us addressing in a reconciliatory matter the relationship between the different factions, the different political parties, the different ideologies that exist. So for the religious Islamic Brotherhood community who are clashing with the secular and the military community in Egypt, a transitional period require that they look at the past, they look at the reconciliation, and it's an essential part of any discussion on reconciliation to discover and learn more about forgiveness. And I think our research is mainly trying to look at forgiveness from within, from the Muslim culture, from the religious perspective as well, and to look at the local resources, whether they are cultural, religious, or any other form of forgiveness. So who will you make peace with next? I think the question that we're trying to respond to it here. I guess the issue of making peace with your environment, with your surrounding, with people that you interact with, whether it is on the personal level or it is on the community or in the national level. And our project on forgiveness and reconciliation, I think, is a good entry point to encourage people to make peace with their enemies and with people that they have caused them wrongdoing, or they have been the victim of wrongdoing. So what we say, the people we will make peace with next are people that we would like to establish a relationship with, and we care about them, and we have a daily contact with them, and we cannot afford not to make peace with them. And what we're trying to do with the project is to provide teachers with the skills, with concepts, with capacity really to dare and venture into this area of discussion in the schools and in the education system, because we think that the education for peace, the education for forgiveness and reconciliation should start from the earliest elementary and even kindergarten age, and not necessarily wait until people in the military or in the army or in other positions in the society. It's crucial for us to have our students and kids and children be trained and exposed to the concept of forgiveness and reconciliation as early as possible, thinking that they will be the generation who will hopefully continue and take us into making peace with all our surroundings. Salam Institute for Peace and Justice, and who's sort of supporting this mission. The Forgiveness Project is really one component of Salam work. We focus in our work since 2003 on several areas, One is research. The second one is more on capacity building for civil society. And the third one working with religious clergy and with the religious community, mostly on interfaith as well as peace education in religious schools. And we have a number of projects on that topic. The Institute mission is really to try and disseminate the knowledge of peace and conflict resolution as well as forgiveness and reconciliation through the capacity building, training, research in a number of areas. One of the main principles that we have followed since the beginning is really the sensitivity to the local culture and local religious tradition, and work within or from within of these tradition and cultures to produce tools and to produce mechanisms that can be utilized by educators, clergy, government, and civil society to spread that message and the values that we believe in. The forgiveness project is really something that was supported by a number of foundations, including the Kindle Foundation as well as the Fitzer Institute, have supported the project since its inception about 3 years ago. What are the practical advices that we have for policymakers in building peace in general? And I think, as I stated earlier, the cost, the human and the cost that we have, that wars and violence have inflicted on humanity in general, and also specifically just in the last 2-3 years, we see examples of incredible destruction in Afghanistan, in Somalia, in Syria, in many places around the world, and also in Africa. And I think one conclusion we all reached in the field of peace building and conflict resolution, that the path toward development, stability, and the growth cannot go through a weapon, cannot go through violence. Violence will only breed violence. Hatred will only breed hatred. So for policymakers, really the first advice is to be more vigilant in supporting peace building program and supporting conflict resolution values in their community and in their policy. A second advice, we know that if we leave the warriors and the fighters to continue and use violence without intervention from the international community, destructions and further victimhood will be the main outcome or the result. So for policymakers concretely to be thinking about methods and ways to find to support and fund alternative ways to stop the fighting and to reduce the level of violence. This is a generic. Let me just add one more practical advice on the school system, on a local, domestic level, wherever the policymaker is. I think should be the main commitment is for inclusivity and guaranteeing basic human rights for all people who are in that constituency, rather than serving and working with small group and be very narrow in their policy making strategy. Another advice, the practical one would be more as practical as reallocating or increasing the funding for their local school programs for peace, for increase money for absorbing and helping poor people, disadvantaged community to get access to education, provide the basic supports and assistance to people to reduce their suffering and alienation in their community. And I think policymakers, whether they are in a mayor office or they are in the ministry or in the United Nations, each one has the capacity to influence within their sphere.